Okay.
Hi, this is Vhukhudo and Lucky. We are done working on chapter 4, project 1, and we'll just take you through it. Let me open it on my browser. So it's an evaluate a number game. We have to ask the user to enter a number and check whether it's greater than, equal to, or less than a dynamic number value that is in our code. And then we output the result to the user. As you can see, we get the prompt from the user here, and then we typecast it to a number, and then we create a random number that's going to be our dynamic number value. And we just use 100,000 here to get big numbers because we wanted to allow the users to not be limited to only small numbers. And then we created a variable called number switch, and then we have an if statement here, and then we say if the number is greater than the random number that we created here, and the variable number switch will be equals to 0, and then if it's equal to random, the number switch will be 1, and then if it's less than random, the number switch is going to be 2, and if it's not a number or anything like that, the user's gonna get an alert saying I'm not sure about that one. And then here we have a switch statement. That's when we use the variable we created, number switch. So if number switch is 0, that means it is greater than the number is greater than the random number. So it's going to tell the user on the HTML that your number is greater than the secret number, and then with 1 it's going to tell the user on the HTML that their number is equal to the secret number, and then if it's 2, it's going to tell the user that your number is less than the secret number, and then we have a default which is going to say I don't know. So just to showcase this, we're going to put a number here. We're going to say Vhukhudo, give me a number.
Um, let's put 10.
Okay, so we're going to do 10, and then we're going to click OK, and then it tells us your number 10
Number
is less than the secret
less.
number. So this is the number that the user inputs, and then this is the random number that was generated. And then just to show that if someone puts maybe hello instead of a number, it's just going to say I'm not sure about that one, and then it's going to say I don't know.
So it only needs a number.
Yeah, it only takes a number.
Okay. It's a number game, by the way.
Yeah, so that's all from here, from project 1. Now we're going to move on to project 2. Project 2 was a friend checker game. So we were supposed to ask the user to enter a name using the switch statement to return a confirmation that the user is a friend. If the name selected is known in the case statement, so it's gonna tell them that they're a friend if the name is known in the case statement. And then if we can also add a default response to say that we don't know the person if that name is not in the case statement. And instead of outputting our results to the console, we decided to use HTML, just so there's less buttons to click while you're in the browser. And so I'm just gonna open this, I'm gonna close this. So it prompts you, give us a name. Vhukhudo, do you wanna give a name?
Let's say Sipo.
Okay, so we're gonna type Sipo, and then gives us a response. Yep, Sipo is a friend, confirmed. So when we go back to our code, as you can see here, we created a variable called friend, and it's a prompt, give us a name. That's what happens when we refresh this, and then we have a switch statement. Yes?
So what happens if we put a name which is not on our code?
Yeah, so it's gonna go to the default, which is gonna give us I cannot confirm, I don't know, and then it's gonna say the person. So let's say Steve, for example.
Yes.
Let's say Steve, and then see I cannot confirm, I don't know Steve.
Okay.
Yes. And so how it does that is with this switch statement here. We take the input that were given by the user via the prompt, and then we have a case here which is Vhukhudo. If it's Vhukhudo, it's going to tell us that it's going to confirm that it knows Vhukhudo, that Vhukhudo is a friend. Just to show this, yeah, Vhukhudo is a friend, confirmed. And then another name that we do have in the case in the switch statement is Lucky.
Yeah.
If we use Lucky, it's going to show the same thing. Instead of Vhukhudo, it's gonna say Lucky. With SIPO, we have already
Okay.
seen. Instead of Vhukhudo, it's gonna say SIPO, and we've already seen with the default. And yeah, that's all from the friend checker game. So the next project after this was a bit of a challenging one. It was rock paper scissors, and in this
Yes.
game we were supposed to simulate a game between a player, okay, not simulate but create a game between a player and a computer, and the computer makes a random selection of either rock paper or scissors, and the user also makes a random selection of either a rock paper or scissors, and then our code basically determines who is the winner. It will tell us which option the computer chose and which option the player chose, and it's going to tell us who's the winner. As you can see,
Okay.
when we load the page, it asks
Yes.
us rock paper or scissors, so we're supposed to make a choice. And in our code here we have an array which has rock paper and scissors. So what we did
Okay.
is that we created a variable called idx for index, and basically this just creates a random number up to three options. And basically we created a variable called computer, and then we get a random we use this variable to get a random index, so it can either be rock paper, it's random, and that will determine the computer's choices. And then here we have a player, which is a prompt, which is what we're seeing here. Instead of it being determined randomly for the player, we get a prompt, and then you're just gonna put what you want here, and it's gonna put a message that's gonna concatenate this. It's gonna be a string that's concatenated. It's gonna say player, and then it's gonna show your choice here, what you put in the prompt, and then it's gonna say versus computer, and then it's gonna show what the computer chose, which is based on a random uh, index selection. And then we have an
Okay.
yes, and then we have an if statement here, which checks if player is this, if whatever is chosen by the player, if it's the same as what's chosen by the computer, it's gonna give a
Mm.
message. It's gonna print this message, but then it's gonna concatenate. It's a tie at the end of it. Else, yes, you have a question?
Yes. Um, if we can go back to line 8
Yes.
on the message there,
Let me just make it big.
could you please explain for me? Um, you see line 8, let message.
Yep.
Could you please explain for me those strings inside? How do we know how to put them, like the player and um I see the other players, the colors are not the same,
Oh, I
and
see.
like two players, there's two computers. How do we get
Yeah, I see.
to know how to put them, to adjust them there inside?
Good question. So I'm just gonna use this left side of my screen, and
Okay.
basically I'm just gonna make it a comment. What we are doing with message, we're creating a variable that's gonna store a string, because you know a
Yes.
string. This is how we make a string. We put it in quotation marks, so we can have something like this.
Yes.
This is a string, and then that's how we're gonna keep it in a variable. But then now we want a string to also include the choices we've made here, because remember we have this array here, and the
Yes.
computer chooses randomly rock, paper, or scissors, right? And then a player
Okay.
enters a prompt, right, which can be rock, paper, or scissors, right?
Okay.
And so we can't, so when we use the string here, we want to concatenate what the computer has chosen. You see this rock paper scissors, and what the player has chosen. So this is what we're doing. So going back to this example here, you see the string, this is a string. We
Mhm.
basically, this is how we did it. This is another way of doing a string, and then you can concatenate, add another thing, and then you can say, okay, let's make
Uh,
spaces because it's gonna need spaces. And then let me add a space here, right? And then actually let me show it on the console, because we can actually run JavaScript there. Okay, so we can say let message equals to this is a string, right? That was the first example.
Yes.
And then, oh, sorry, it's checking our. Okay, this wasn't a good idea to use this console because we have these already. But just going back here, we can concatenate and make it look like this. This is the same as the first one that I had. This is a string. It's gonna take
Yeah.
this, combine it with this, combine it with this. So that's what we wanna do, right? With the it's the same thing we wanna do with these. We wanna take this and then combine it. Remember, this one, that's the prompt you get from the user. Whatever the user
Yeah.
puts here, we wanna combine it with this, right?
Yeah.
And then we combine versus computer, and then whatever, remember the computer chooses a random index here.
Yeah.
So whatever the computer chose, we want to combine it with this, and so it's gonna print.
So, okay, one last question.
Yep.
Is it uh, is it possible to use, instead of those um plus plus, is it possible to use comma comma? Does it still add? Where there's positive, we put comma comma. Is it still gonna be able to add
I don't think so.
line 8?
I don't think so, because plus here it concatenates. That's the operation we use to join strings. Because you know, when you're using a number, when you say, let's say this was 10 and then this was 10, when you have 10 plus 10, it's gonna add them, it's gonna be 20. But then when you're using a string, you can't add strings, so it joins them and makes them one string. So if we use
Yeah.
commas, I don't think it's gonna work. You see, we get errors here, we get underline.
Error
Yeah.
immediately. Yeah.
So we can
Okay.
only use this. This is just joining. Another way of using this, we can do it with using backticks, right? We
Okay.
can say backticks, and then we can say player, and then we'll put this variable here, player, and then we're gonna say versus computer,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna use this variable here to show the computer. So player versus computer, yeah, that's all. You understand? So we can remove this and
Still
have
the
this
same thing.
instead. Yeah, it's the same thing, it's just a different way of using strings, and this will do the same thing. We're gonna show it later when we run the code that it's gonna result in the same thing. But yeah, going back to the, so is that all with the questions?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
That's all.
going back to the if statements, I ended up here. So if
Yeah.
player is greater than computer, okay, so here it's checking the index. If the index is 0 and player is the same as scissors, the message will concatenate that the computer wins, or else the player will win, because if the computer didn't win and it's not a tie, that means the player won. Else if the index is 2, so when the index is 2, that means it's scissors, and player is rock, right? The message will concatenate to say player wins or else computer wins. Same logic, that if the player didn't win and it's not a tie, that means the computer won. So now to run the code, let me just refresh it. We can add rock, paper, or scissors. Which one do you want to choose?
Scissors.
Okay, we want to add scissors, and then we run the code.
Okay.
I think it's in the console. Let me open my console. You see, this is the string
Yes.
here. Do you see that it does the same thing? It's the string here.
Mm.
Player chose scissors versus computer chose rock. So computer wins because rock will
Yeah.
beat scissors.
Yeah.
So going back to the code here, if I just bring back what we had in the first place, right, you will see that now it's what we had at first, and it will do the same thing. Let's choose scissors again. Oh, sorry, I'm typing in the wrong place. Scissors. You see, player, scissors versus computer, paper. Player wins because scissors beats
Yeah.
paper. You see, it does the same exact thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's all with project 3, which was the rock paper scissors game, and yes, that was chapter 4. Uh, what was chapter 4? Logical statements, if else, switch, and all those nice things. Thank you.
Thank you.